Okay, thank you, thank you. Welcome to the SPT Social Presence in Theater Speaker Series. We do this every month in the first Tuesday of the month. And today I am so happy to have an old friend, Pierre Paris, with us. He was with us training in 2013, 2014. We did the advanced training together and became teachers that year of social presence in theater. And also Laura over here was with us in the same training as well. So it's like kind of going back in time a little bit. So yes, welcome everybody. So Pierre has been doing a lot of amazing work lately. And I'm so excited that he's going to come tell us a little bit. I want to tell you about him. He has been working with organizations, NGOs, and also big companies for over 35 years. And in his continuous continuing learning, and he's like kind of integrating collective intelligence approach now and teaching and training facilitators in this. So he's been integrating SPT since 2014 in his work and also with other people. So, and he himself is really interesting because his work is not just working with one organization. This is like big things and with kind of amazing results. So I can't wait to hear from you. And so the format is we will have Pierre tell us a little bit about the experience for about 15 minutes, 20, I guess, however long he has. And then we will open up for questions and conversations. So listen as he speaks, what comes up for you? Imagine yourself in that situation or in your own situation. How would you do it yourself? And if you had Pierre there with you, what would you ask him? How would you ask him to assist you if you were to do something like that? So, and then we'll engage in conversation and then we'll end up at the end together with maybe a word or something of what we take with us from this conversation. Okay? Fantastic. So Pierre, go ahead. Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Good. Okay, good. Thank you, Mary. It's a lot of fun for me to share that. So I'll try to make it in 15, 20 minutes maxi. So everybody knows the 4D mapping practice in the group here, right? Everybody is aware of that, right? Okay. So the story I want to tell is about 4D mapping is probably the practice of SPT that I'm using more in organization and company because it provides quick result in an easy way. But I must say that most of the time it's quite difficult to have, I don't know about you, but for me it's quite difficult to have people do body work in big company or serious organization because they're not used to this at all, and the body is very marginalized in those organizations. So I was very happy to do the work I'm going to tell you now because it was a kind of move forward in that direction, right? It's about people who are directors of townships. You know, so they are people having a hard work, and they are working with politicians on one side and people of the town on the other side, having big project, and they're having every year a big conference, 150 of them, all around France. They come together during the summer just to share about their job. And those conferences are usually very top down with big experts coming and telling things. So they wanted to have something more participative, and they asked me to introduce 4D mapping as a way to animate their conference. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I had 12 of them. 12 of them which were ready to go through this very new experience, mainly men, which is also noticeable because most of the time when I teach SPT, it's only women, but here I had men, so I was very happy with this. 3 women on the 12, and I had 2 days and a half to teach them how to facilitate a 4D mapping practice that they will do themselves. And so it was quite a challenge. It was taking a risk, because facilitating 4D mapping is not so obvious. And they had to learn this in 2 days and a half and be able to do it with a group of people who have never done any body work in their life. So that was a challenge, right? So I spent those 2 days and a half, 3 times, half a day, then another day 1 month later, another day 2 months later. And my teaching was basically to do 4D mapping again and again. So we did 5 times a 4D mapping on an issue, so that they could experiment it themselves before being able to facilitate it. And the other strong challenge that I had, and I was personally very excited about this, is to use 4D mapping to work on a social issue, not on a case, because those people have been trained also in organizational constellation the year before. But organizational constellation, you work on a case. You take a situation which is proposed by someone and you work on it. With 4D mapping, you can do that too. But with 4D mapping, you can do something unique, which is to work on a societal issue or on a common issue, okay? And so this was also the challenge. So we did it 5 times with them, and every time they would take a big issue which has to do with managing town, basically. So it was all kind of issue could be about children, could be about health, could be about infrastructure, but every time it was a big collective issue, okay? So I trained them, and I will tell you more or less what I learned by doing that, which is a little new for me in terms of this practice of 4D mapping. The first thing I learned was that I had to write a very detailed and precise guide for them, including exactly the words that they would have to say to the group of people, So it was very interesting to do it with them. I had an assistant helping me, and we really wrote a kind of 6 to 7 pages guide telling them exactly how they would facilitate the process. So that was a very, very interesting work to document and to adapt it to their own style, right? The other thing is we found very quickly that to have this practice work, we would need to start with a very deep and simple body practice, because you can imagine you have a group of let's say 10 to 12 people or 15 people coming, and they have never done any body work, and you are going to do a 4D mapping with them. So you need to do something to prepare them in terms of body work. And so we evolved together a very simple, easy to do practice, which is I will not go in detail, but basically it's about mindfulness when you come and sit, visualization of the way you made to come and sit in that place. Then you stand up, walk in the space, then find a right place in the space, mindfulness in standing, you know, feeling the space around, feeling your body, etc. And then starting to walk again, but awareness of the group and different rhythm of walk. So you're even running, so you are obliged to find a fluidity in the space with the group, like a fish group or a birds group, you know, this kind of thing. And then how do you call salutation? You say that?
Like greetings probably.
Bowing to people, or they were not bowing. In fact, they would rather shake hands. But it was basically about, you know, greeting each other while you walk, and then finally a circle, and everyone would present himself or herself with a gesture and a few words, you know. And so this was quite long. It would take like maybe 15 to 20 minutes, but that was really key to have a successful practice afterwards. So that was the first learning. We really need, when we work with people who are not used to body work, we really need to take the time to include the body and to introduce them to something completely new for them. So that was one thing. Then they would facilitate with an assistant. That was very important, not facilitate alone. Every one of them, they would have an assistant. And the observer would be specialized in observing a certain aspect. Basically, it was about observing the roles, observing the shift from sculpture 1 to sculpture 2, and observing the global architecture. That was the main 3 points that we designed as observer, to specialize observer, right? Then I found that the sequence of sorting roles, identifying and sorting roles was very critical, because with that kind of people who are used to public debate, it's very difficult to keep it short and simple. They would immediately start big conversation. So it was a real training to show them how to make it just sorting roles, not debating about them, you know. And that was, for them, it was a real effort. And also introducing the 3 divides from theory was extremely important. I think this was a big thing for them. And especially, I was surprised, but especially the spiritual divide. The spiritual divide was the most difficult to understand out of 3, you know. Economical divide, they live with this every day, so they know. And also, we, as you probably followed, we had some riots in France recently about that. So they were very sensitized to this. The earth divide, the environmental divide, it's now a public issue. But spiritual divide, it was completely something they would not understand that. So that was very, very interesting to work on that with them. And then we had, and then it worked well. So you can imagine the situation. You have a big conference with 150 persons, and for 3 hours, they will split in 12 groups of more or less 13, and every one of them would do a 4D mapping in the same time, right? And we had designed it so that they could choose between 5 topics, 5 social issues, and very, very surprisingly, all the group chose the same. It was an incredible synchronicity. So that was, for them, that was a strong result already. They chose the same issue, which was about how to manage townships together, to combining different townships and manage them in adaptation to the new world, to the shift in the world and the culture, in the economy. So that was a quite great topic. And it worked. I mean, every one of them, they were able to do a 4D mapping. So I will not describe this, you know how it works. But the next learning I got out of it is a harvesting, because most of the time when we do 4D mapping in our kind of consultant environment, we don't harvest so much. Which is, at least this is what I found. We would share about what happened, what was the role, what did I feel, what did I see, what did I do. But that's not enough. When you work with people who are responsible of a town, of a big issue, you really need to do the harvesting of the sculpture too. But then you need to do something else after that. You need to bring that back to reality, right? So what we did is the harvesting of the sculpture was made in situation, with the role staying in the situation. I found that this was very useful to make it short, to make it so the instruction was, you stay in situation, including the observers, and you make short sentences, because very often you probably observe when you start talking about the sculpture, it can be very long and very, very verbal and very mental. So it was in situation, still with the shape of the body and short sentences. And that was beautiful. It provided a beautiful dialogue between them. And after that, they would go in subgroup of 4 to 5 maximum, and they would really start to speak about how shall I apply this back to work, So the very important aspect of harvesting was really to take the inspiration from the 4D mapping Sculpture 1, Sculpture 2 movement, and bring back this inspiration to my work, when I go home, what shall I do different, or and they really discussed about that. There was somebody in charge of taking notes, and at the end we even did another level of harvesting, which was individual. They would have a time of silence, and every one of them would write on a post-it what was their key learning, and what they were bringing back home from this experience. And all this was collected and was gathered after it, And so the important result of that is that we had 12 subgroups in the conference, which each of them produced something, and so they could make a kind of collective harvesting of all of this. And for this conference, it was a very important production, because it really came from the people, and they were not just sitting in a room listening to a big expert. They were really producing something. And in fact, if I take, because this happened 6 months ago, if I take some distance now from this experience, this was probably the main outcome, because now that they have had this experience, they want to make another conference next year. They do it every year. They want to make it very different, in the sense that they want to have people participate much more than before. So it's this little experience of 3 hours is starting to shift also their own conception of what it is to meet every year, and how should we organize it. So I'm very happy about that. Yes, that's it, more or less. What I forgot to say is that I've done this jobs through an institution which is in charge of training all civil servants in France. And those people are quite innovative. Huh? So this is why they asked me to do that, because they are very innovative. So and they were very happy with the experience, and they want to do it again and again. So it's also a process where progressively we are trying to introduce collective intelligence in that world of managers, civil managers. And for them, it's a complete change of mind, because they are very much there, and it helps them to learn to manage also with the heart and with the body, with the will. So that's it.
Wow.
Is it right in time?
Fantastic. Wow. If we were in a conference, we'll be clapping now.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for sharing all that. I have lots of questions. I don't know people, but I'm gonna allow other people to ask first, but at least one interesting question that will be interesting for me to know. But what's come up for you, ladies? Because I think, yeah, everybody, they're all ladies here.
Yeah, as usual.
Yes. So what are Christine?
Yes. Can you tell me again the roles that you, the 3 roles that you had the observers, you know,
Okay.
that each one had a role, or yeah, one of 3 roles.
Okay, so one was observing the roles, the characters, of, and which one was making the shift, you know, observing how the characters were kind of making the story or impacting something specific. The second was about the shift between Sculptor 1 to Sculptor 2, the transformative generative movement. Where did it start and what did it do, you know, because this is probably the core of the experience of the 4D mapping. And the last one was about the architecture of the sculpture, the architecture of the group. I often observe that this is something we miss when we debrief, but for me it makes a lot of sense. You know, the kind of shape of the social body, how it evolves. It for me it has a meaning too. So that was the 3. But you could find others. I just select this 3 one with them, but you could find others.
Okay.
So Pierre, before the 4D mapping started, you selected 3 people that each of them will be looking for these 3 different things, or how did you do this part?
Say it again, the question, Mary.
So these 3 roles that you were talking, did you tell them beforehand that they will be observing this? Like, yes. Let's say Laura will look for that, I will look for that, and Christine will look for something else.
Yeah.
So beforehand, so they were sitting and looking for those 3 different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Great. So anything else?
Just out.
Silvana, and then Laura.
Okay, Pierre, my question is at the beginning, because you said that sometimes we are working with people who just only think with head or brain, and they are not very they are not used to work with body and hearing their feelings, their thoughts. So my question is, you told me that at the beginning you needed to take like a 15 or 20 minutes to work in somebody works. My question is, just only you let them walk in and greeting each other, and what else do you do, or that's it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. You want me to describe the full embodiment practice to start?
The body works at the beginning to break the ice how you did, because you explained a little bit around about like the people, you invite them to walk and find the correct place that they feel comfortable, and after that you try to each other and make salutations or greeting each other. But did you do something else, or that's it? Because we are working with people that they are don't used to work with body, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So, you know, you can do so many things, but I will tell you just the logic of what I did. Huh? But I invite you to invent anything, huh? But I tell you the logic. The first thing is about reaching the where you are and being there. So we made once the people would sit, we would guide them in a visualization on how they enter the room, how did they feel when they enter the room, where they're coming from, how do they feel when they enter the room, and then now how do
Okay, maybe it got frozen a little bit. Okay, I see everybody else moving, so he's probably coming back. Good question, Silvana.
Yeah, my English.
Oh no, that was perfect. I love it that he's giving us the logic of the whole thought of how.
Yes, because you know sometimes a lot of people they don't understand 4D mapping or these kind of things. So if we want to work with different groups that they don't understand anything about 4D mapping or SPT, so it's difficult sometimes.
Yes. Yes, and from my experience, for example, I know that I feel the same. Like, you know, people need to have some sense of connecting with the body before, and I feel our one of you feels the same. My understanding, I've never worked with Otto, but my understanding is you just throw them in the deep water from the very beginning with nothing, no 20-minute dance, no nothing, and he sees results as well. I think it's also, you know, how you manage. In my experience, is how you as a facilitator kind of guide the people through whatever you want them to do, and you know, like it's almost as if you're saying, okay, we're going to do something that is not very usual, but you know, please feel yourself and like, you know, check yourself and go as far as you want to go, and you know, like not everybody has to do it if you don't want to, and things like that. I feel that, you know, kind of what can we say so people don't feel so threatened. I think.
oh
Hey, Pierre, you're there. Okay.
hey.
Cool. So we
Okay,
lost you in
so
the logic.
sorry, I don't know what happened now.
You were just telling us about the visualization.
Okay, so I tried to make it short with the logic. So first is people have to come from where they come and be there in their chair. Okay, first point. You do whatever you want, but you need to have this. Then they need to get hold of the space. So for example, it was just standing, walking, and find a place that you like, you know, but it's about, you know, awareness of the space. And then they would need they would need to be enlarging their awareness to the different sides of their body, to the feeling of their body, to their standing position, you know. It's a kind of standing mindfulness, very active standing mindfulness. It's not meditation, it's more being aware of the field. It's connecting with the field. You need to do that. And then you need to have them be aware of the group, like in a village. But of course, you will not do a village with them. They would be afraid of that. So It was just about walking and being aware of the other and avoiding each other and doing it more and more quickly, you know. So like in a, how do you call a fish school, you know, like you go like that, fluidity, right? And then it was about connecting to each other, so greetings. And then it's about presenting yourself with a gesture. So it's about, you know, all the level of awareness that you need to bring to have a group, to have an aware group. So you can do it differently, but it's more or less what we design. And the last part, presenting yourself with a gesture, was the most difficult for them. Because, you know, when we do SPT with among us, we would do a very nice gesture, you know. But those people, when you ask them to make a gesture, they would do that, you know. They are very limited in terms of expression. Huh? So you have to take this into account, right?
Thank you.
I didn't understand this last part, Pierre. When you said that these people would do a gesture differently. Could you clarify that part, please?
My experience of people in companies or organizations is that their sense of making a movement or taking a shape is very limited. Like if there was something socially limiting them, so they would do something very shy, you know, very limited, you know. And you have to take this as very expressive too, but don't wait for something very, you know, like it doesn't work like that. Okay.
Like Mary Miguel style. Okay, so Laura, what came up for you?
Yeah, I was curious when you said that often in 4D mapping, you miss the overall architecture.
Oh.
And I just was curious about what kind of things you're seeing in the architecture. Is it like it became more open, that people were spread across the space, or they're concentrated?
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Continue, okay. Laura. You're saying it.
Okay. And did they put a meaning to that?
Did they put a
meaning?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's about looking to the sculpture 1, sculpture 2 from a helicopter view, like if you were looking from above, and then you will see that it's like making a drawing also, and it's an evolving drawing. You know, it starts with a certain shape with sculpture 1. And then when it starts to move, the drawing will move, and it will end to a new shape. And so it's also the story of a drawing, and I find it makes a lot of meaning generally. But it's not it's unique. It's different every time. And it's a metaphor, so it has to be interpreted by people, like exactly what you say. Like, for example, at this time, we were extending in the room, and then we moved more in the center. But what does it mean is up to the people. Huh? You cannot, I don't believe there is an interpretation possible about that. It has to be done by the people in the situation. But it has a meaning, yes. Okay. It's a metaphor also, right? Yeah. The drawing, and yeah. But to have a sense of it, you need to look at it from above or from far distance. And often we are so captured by the beauty of it that it's difficult to take this far distance. So this is why we specialize a few observer on this.
That sounds like a really great idea. And I guess the other thing I'm curious about is that you had 12 groups, and to me it sounds like they came away with some prototypes that they're going to, or crystallization that they're going to prototype. Will they report back to how they implemented some of this that they did during the conference?
You mean on the methodology or on the findings?
Findings.
Yeah, of course. I told you, it has been, all this harvesting has been collected in every group, and then there are people from the association who have taken in charge to make a synthesis out of it, and it will be produced as an outcome of this experience. Yes, it will be a little report.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But will some of it be implemented?
Implemented in terms of action, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is up to them. Huh? They come back to their management of a town, and what they will do is up to them. We don't know exactly about that, but we will probably have a feedback on that in next year.
Yeah.
Great.
It could. You're right, Laura. It could be good to have a kind of day of feedback 6 months later to see what has been really implemented or not. Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's exciting to think that you can bring a group that big together and come away with some crystallization and then possible prototyping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to me, it seems like that's what organizations are really wanting, is something to be actionable.
Mm-hmm. With an impact, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So a question that came out for me is always, as we do SPT, especially when we work with other people, especially that are not usually working with the body. To me, it's always very interesting the language that we use when we present these things. And so I'm curious, what was the language that you used to tell these people in the organization of the conference that we're going to do blah, blah, blah? And so what was the language that you used? And also you said that they were very innovative, so that makes it much easier. But, and so that was one part. It's like how you presented this to the organization of the conference, and then how did you present it in the conference itself? Where a moment where you stood up and say, we're going to divide into groups and we're going to do something? How was that transition?
Okay, good. I get it. Well, in that situation, precisely, this was a new experience for me, because usually I'm facilitating a group of manager in a company, for example. So I will have this kind of problem that you mentioned. But in that case, what was really very new and interesting was that I was not in the conference. I trained those people, and then they did it themselves. And in the group of 12, there was the president of the association and the general secretary of the association, because they are both very, very committed to innovation, right? So they presented this themselves in the conference, you know.
Oh my God.
I didn't have to do it. And so even the guide that was written, it was written by those people who are in the training center. They are specialized in training those people and the civil servant. So it was written in their own words. I provided the content, I provided the logic, the methodology, but they wrote the guide themselves. So I was in a very good situation of, you know, like transferring something to them, and they put them in, they put it in their own language naturally, in fact.
Wow, so you were not even in there, because that was the
No.
following question. Where were you? Were you like looking at everything?
I was not even in the conference.
There.
I was not invited in the conference. I trained them to do it themselves.
So that was when you did these 5 sessions with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 days and a half. Yeah.
Wow.
Next year, we are going to do something a little more complex, so they will probably invite me as a facilitator. But this time we wanted to have them do it 100%.
Wow. That is very interesting. Wow.
Yeah, I think this is what was new, huh? Because I was a little scared to do that at the beginning. I thought those people were crazy, but I wanted to try. And I was very surprised to see that it was possible to train people to do that themselves in a quite short time. Huh?
And these are people that never even done the basic of SPT, for example.
Yeah, no, never. They are
Wow.
not even facilitators. Huh? They are managers. They are people who are managing teams in towns. And so, yeah, but the training was quite hard for them. Huh? They were committed and trusting me, but they were very surprised. The first half day, they were resisting a lot, and they were not happy, and they were challenging me. What is this? It's crazy, etc. But then they love it.
Wow. So you use the word collective intelligence, which, you know, I know those words, the English, and it makes a lot of sense to introduce SPT as a collective intelligence practice. And this must sound new. I mean, must sound obvious to you, but for me, it feels like, wow, that's kind of a very easy way to introduce it.
Yeah.
Because it's actually what it is.
It is, yeah.
With the collective intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so just to follow up 1 second on that, and then I'll leave room for somebody else, is when they were being resistant, what did you do, or what did you say to work with our resistance?
To work with?
To work with the resistance. When you were training them, you said that at the beginning they were very resistant. And so what did you say or did to work with that?
Let me remind. Well, this has to do with the skill of facilitation. And when you have a resistance in a group, you welcome the resistance, you go with it, you swim with it, and you try to make sense out of it, or to have people in the room making sense out of it. But it's basically accepting it. Huh? It's basically including, accepting, trying hard not to be defensive as a facilitator, because if you become defensive, it's lost. Huh? But yeah, it's basically about hosting the resistance and including it, and having the rest of the group process it. Trust the group. Yeah, basically trust the group and let the group process the resistance. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that is a big thing a lot of the times when we work with groups, especially bringing something new and unusual. Yeah. Great. So anything else? We have about 5 minutes more for another question.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The first one is about, can you just share a little bit more about how you introduced the roles from the 3 divides? I've usually just done that real simply, and it sounds like you're adding more to it, so I'm very curious.
Oh, okay. Well, I introduce it very simply, like like Otto Scharmer is doing, yeah, giving example of what is economic divide, what is the Earth divide. But then, so this is quite abstract. But then what I do is I always try to find among the roles that they have already decided, to find if the divides are already there in the roles. So it's more about adapting the divide to the situation rather than in trying to invent new roles. When a role is not, when a divide is not there, then you ask the group to find it, and that can be very interesting. Yeah? Recently, I did that with a group of people in the bank, and there was not the spiritual divide in the room. It was not there, so they started to reflect, and finally they came with the artist. And that was so surprising, because the artist has nothing to do in the situation of these people, but they brought this new role, you know. And in fact, when we did the 4D mapping, it happened to be a very important role in the sculpture. So sometimes it's an opportunity to find an existing role and load this role with more meaning of a big divide. And sometimes it's an opportunity to open the reflection on the group on something that they were completely forgetting or marginalizing. It depends. Huh? So you have to, as a facilitator, you have to choose what to do.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Do you ever leave it just open if you don't have time to go through and say this role will be the, say, marginalized role, and we just let it play out, and then the group sees what that turns into versus talking about it first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great, thanks. That was very helpful.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, what were you talk about the harvesting, like what are the feelings that were harvesting as for you as an observer of the whole situation that you are sharing with us?
What was, say it again? What was
the feelings that are harvesting that you may use in a different scenario, now that you have this example and that you mentioned you didn't use before, so how do you work with that, with the feelings that you are harvesting, if that makes sense?
I'm not sure I understand fully the question. Could you?
The feeling seems like in the harvesting, tell me, Viviana, if I got it right. When you did the harvesting, that there were feelings coming up, and
yeah, they were for them, but for you, for you, what are the feelings that are harvesting in order to take a new approach, a new job? What is the main finding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still not sure myself either. Yeah. So
yeah, what is the new finding?
Say it in Spanish, no? And you translate, Mary.
Yeah, but she's in Australia, so I think her English is good. Okay. But I'm not sure that is the English.
I think for me, when I do something new, I cosecha, I harvest something internally to be able to have the courage to take into the next and then my next job.
Okay, I guess you're talking about the facilitator more than
Yeah. Exactly.
So at the level of facilitator, if there was anything, any harvesting or any finding for you, and I guess it's kind of what you were telling us, that, you know, this thing that you did this new thing about like training people for them to do it. And so what were your own findings as a facilitator? I guess that's what is question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. My feelings.
But more in the inner state. Yeah.
More
In the inner, like inner, your own inner learnings.
Okay. Yeah. Inner learning. Yeah, it's always inner. Huh? Anyway, one is about the surprise that people can be capable to do that so in such a short training, and so the feeling is oh, I'm always surprised how people are able to self-organize, huh? And every time it happens, it's like a new surprise, a new happiness, and it's a feeling of, oh, I'm doing that job for that, huh, for feeling that. You know, I'm doing that. This is my best moment, is when I feel, wow, this group is so powerful. I can just sit and look at them. I love that feeling. It's a beautiful feeling. It's just like you can let go. So I had a lot of that, but I also want to stress a little more the harvesting aspect of it, because you know, what we can do with a practice like 4D mapping is magic. It's real magic. I mean, for a moment you have in the room something very unique, which is the capacity of a group to be fully inspired, to have a strong intuition about something, and it's magic. It's incredible. It's pure collective intelligence. But if you don't harvest that moment, you stay with a very beautiful, happy feeling about, wow, that was so good, but that's not enough. That's not enough to transform the society. It's not enough to transform organization. So I was very happy that this group was serious enough to have this experience of being inspired by something incredible, which is the power of a group when you let them self-organize, right? To hear this emergence, but then to transform it in what did we learn? What did we really learn out of it? Which we will apply, you know? And this is what is most of the time missing when we do training with people, or when we do teaching or experience. We're not sure what people will do out of it. And I'm always a little worrying that the magic will stay magic, right? Mm. So for me, the harvesting aspect and the way we did it very carefully, and even the remark of Laura, did we check that they apply? It goes in the same direction. That for me is very important. Mm-hmm. Because,
well,
yeah.
Sorry. No, go ahead. Just I just feel that literally we can. This has so much, and I also have other questions, and I don't know what to do because we are just. This is the time. We are at the time. So Christine, it's like, go ahead.
Can I make a comment? I just wanted to say, I am so impressed at what a master you are at 4D mapping. You're a genius. So thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wonder if there is any other way to continue this conversation. For example, I'm thinking I'm going to put this in my YouTube channel, and there's the capacity to make comments there. So if you want, you could even go there and ask questions, and I'll make sure to pass them to Pierre. And if there are a few of them, I might even record Pierre with those questions in a different time, put it again I did that with Laura Pastorini. There was also so many questions that we had to do an extra time trying to answer those questions. So if you're up for that, maybe we could do it that way. And if you have questions right now, you can even write them down and then put them in the YouTube channel. Yeah, Rowena?
So I like that idea. The other option that came up to me now is next month have the same guest.
We could do that, but we have to see if he is available for that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Or any other.
So yeah, we'll continue that conversation. But I really like, again, talking about harvesting. To me, this last moment of like just closing your eyes or like being with yourself for a second and seeing what word comes up from this conversation. How are you feeling now different than when you felt when you came in? And we share that. When you have it, you're welcome to unmute yourself and share it.
Deeply touched by the collective intelligence.
Thank you.
So much more to 4D mapping than I realized.
Thank you.
It's not the only one structure to do things.
It's not the only way or structure to do things.
Thank you, Mary.
Inspired.
Inspired.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Inspired and motivated to go out and try this.
Thank you.
Relaxed and energized.
Relaxed and energized, Shannon and Sonia.
Connected.
Connected, thank you.
I like harvesting my real intelligence. Yeah.
You.
Within the collective.
Harvesting real collective intelligence.
I just feel a smile of out of sharing, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel bubbly, like excited, and at the same time with a new trusting. There's a new trusting of this collective intelligence. And Frederick, do you have something?
Also encouraged to try it out.
Yeah.
Try some new aspects.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Pierre, and each and every one of you for coming and making such an amazing and rich conversation. So with that, we say bye. And again, let's for now go to and put more stuff in the YouTube channel if you have more, and then we'll see if we bring Pierre again next month or if we just do like another video with the questions. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. Bye.